water stuff, maintenance of the equipment. I'm a regional race officer, so I get out there a lot running races. And I've just finished on my 6th year at Chicago Yacht Club.
Oh, I have my own trusted microphone. My name is Lancaster. I'm the race director at Newport Harbor Yacht Club in Newport Beach, California. It's about, I think, 70 miles-ish north of here. So we're blessed to have this beautiful weather most of the year. I've been there for 12 years. I plan everything from putting up the notice of race to putting the scores up and cleaning the dishes sometimes. It just depends. Every regatta is different. We just have to get it all done, so working together. I love talking about helping you form race committee. I sometimes get a little excited and talk too fast, so if someone just give me the slow down motion if I get going a little too fast.
Thank you, Jen. And these are the two ladies in race management and powerboat management that we're really lucky to be able to work with. So I'm honored to be with you guys. My name is Taran Teague. My yacht club is the Annapolis Yacht Club. I've been a PRO and doing race management for a long time. And I will say I started because I raced with my husband, and we both couldn't race in the same sailboat. So I will say that today we are still married. And I'm a national race officer and a U.S. certified judge, and I've been doing this for, since the early 90s, I guess. So I'm real pleased to be here today to talk about how to build race management resources.
Great, I think we're gonna get started. We decided to, good thing, because Matt's not here to moderate, break down this presentation into kind of 3 areas of building your race management resources. The first starting with something that I know challenges me a lot of times, but is personnel. So how are we gonna get the good kind of personnel? Oh, here's our session outline that I forgot. And then Lynn's gonna talk about equipment and boats, and Taran's gonna follow up with some slides on the training that U.S. Sailing offers, so that once we find these good volunteers, we're able to get them trained properly and make effective use of their time. So, and then we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. So don't anyone fall asleep on us. The party's next. We'll get you through it. We're fun. All right. So, of course, there's obviously huge challenges to building a race committee. So I kind of just want to talk about what motivates people. So the first thing that I always, when I ask someone, Lynn, will you come do a race committee? Oh, I can't. I got to take my kids to soccer, and I haven't taken the dog for a walk yet. So there's a million excuses based on time, right? That's something that we're always dealing with is time. A lot of times people give me overcoming the challenge of not being trained. I don't know how to do that. You're afraid, right? Some people are afraid. When they don't know a new skill, they're afraid. And then, of course, there's the inevitable fear of being judged by their peers. I stuck that on there because inevitably also people tell me, I don't want to be part of the race committee. Like, I'm a sailor. I don't want to be on the race committee side. It's us against them. And I've heard a lot this whole weekend about that those barriers are really getting broken down. And we're all realizing that we're a team. Sailors and race committee, we're all working towards the same goal, which is to have fun and make good use of our recreational time. So what is going to motivate people to join the race committee? This, I think, is the essential part to what I'm trying to get across to you today. Finding out what motivates people. I'm sure I didn't get the chance to go, but I just heard in the hallway people talking about the sports psychology talk that they just did across the hallway, and hearing about what motivates and how we can motivate people. So I'm going to give my own non-official way. So people are often motivated because they want to learn something new. You can appeal to people by teaching them something new. Of course, I'm always motivated by fun. If something's social, that's going to be fun. People want to be with their friends. They want to be with the people they like, right? No one wants to go hang out with a bunch of people they don't want to be with. That comes up with an excuse. I can make a million other excuses if I don't want to hang out with the people. And then, of course, some people are motivated by reward and recognition. I think it's just so important to know what motivates people. A lot of people are in it. I was talking to someone the other day. I said, what motivates people on your race committee? The swag, getting my name on the board. That's not what motivates me, but that could be what motivates some people for you. And you need to find out what motivates people at your club. And then I stuck this one on here, obligation, because it's something that we do at Newport Harbor Yacht Club. And we have a very successful race committee. People want to join our race committee. And we have a secret. And I can't believe I'm going to tell you, but it's because people are obligated at Newport Harbor Yacht Club. What I mean by that is that we have a membership category 21 to 40 years old, which is what we call our skipper membership. It is a subsidized membership, and it's broken down into tiers. You know, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's 4 different monetary divisions in that category of membership. They don't have voting rights. They have every other right, less voting. They don't pay an initiation fee. And what also happens is, so when you're 21, you're paying $25 a month, and that's it. Of that $25, a portion of that is banked towards your initiation fee. Probably people have similar structures at their club. But what we do is we make them indentured servants. In turn for your subsidized membership, you have to give me 2 days on the water. I don't know if it's the best thing, it works for us. We set up the schedule in advance. We ask them, we've kind of evolved ourselves, what motivates people. I was noticing many skipper members come, show up on their day. Oh, I don't want to be here. And right, an unmotivated volunteer is of no use to me. They don't want to be here. I'm doing double the work because I'm trying to overcome them just sitting there. So I needed to talk to that skipper membership. What happened? Well, their time commitments are what their big issue is. So we asked them to volunteer on what days they could come. So anyway, lots of ideas on what you can do to motivate different skipper categories.
That's just 2 days for the year?
That is just 2 days of the year. That category of membership is 140 members. So that's it. That doesn't cover all of my race committee. That gets people involved at that lower, more introductory level. So that's, and then of course you're going to hope that we can motivate them. Once I can get my fingers on them, I'm going to find out what motivates that person, and then I'm going to bring them into the fold. So a little bit more on how I motivate people. I want you to remember that building race committee resources is an investment. And just like every good investment, time, effort, money, risk. I think that a couple of those we just touched briefly on in those opening statements, but it takes time to find out what a good volunteer is and how to motivate that good volunteer. Time. It takes getting to know people at your club, right? It takes time to know that Robert Kinney is motivated by, just doing a kick-ass job out there on the water. And it takes time for me to get to know that Bill Mays likes to watch his children sail, and I can motivate them in different ways by knowing them. And that's what the whole club is, right? Being social, getting to know your members. Your obligation as a race committee, recruiter, is to find out what makes these people tick. That's where you're going to be successful, and that takes effort. And then, of course, the money part we talked about earlier, what motivates people in the other session. I'm sure you all give people lunches and drink tickets and maybe swag, and that's sort of where I meant the money part is going to come in. And of course, there's always risk. Risk involved because now you just spent a lot of time and effort and possibly money, and that volunteer might never come back. So you have to make sure that your other 3 parts of your investment are working out so that you don't have a big risk on your hands. The hardest part of getting your race committee base core group of people is just starting, because it's so overwhelming. I think that's because a lot of people want to say, I have to get a race committee base of 100 people because Newport Harbor Yacht Club puts 50 events on a year. That's not on the water days, that's individual events. And so I need a lot of race committee volunteers. And if I look at the whole year and say I want to get all the volunteers for those events, it's never going to happen. It's too big a task. So I set realistic goals for myself that year. This year, I'm going to bring 20 people into my race committee pool that are going to love it. They're going to want to come. They're not going to give me excuses because I've found out what makes them motivated to be there, and I'm going to get them on the water. At my club, I'm sure you can tell I'm the fire starter. But maybe at your club, you got to figure out what it is at your club and who it is. It didn't come. I've been there 12 years. I didn't wake up. I didn't start as the fire starter. It's just happened. But the way we started is that we found in our yacht club talking to people that we had a staff commodore that people just revered. When he walked into the room, everyone sat up a little straighter. Everyone wanted to shake his hand. Everyone wanted to hear the stories about him sailing Etchells in Australia. And so we went to him and we said, we're having trouble finding people come out on the race committee. What can you do to help me? And this is going to sound so cheesy and so simple, but it worked like nobody's business for us. He wrote a letter. Who writes a letter anymore? We never get a written letter. We get emails or a phone call or some passing quip in the hall. And he sat down and he penned a letter on beautiful Newport Harbor Yacht Club stationery that said, we need you. Your club needs you. We need you to come learn about race committees so that we can keep being the club that we're known for. Then, but find out who that is at your club. I was talking to some people at St. Francis about this, and they kind of looked at me, Jen, we got 3 times the membership you do. That's never going to work at our club. And I challenged them, and I said, it will work. You have some amazing sailors at St. Francis Yacht Club. Find out which people speak to which other people. Russ Silvestri, for me, is someone I look up to on the water. If I got a letter from Russ Silvestri that said, Jen, your club needs you to be on the water, I would think twice at least. I would look at my other commitments and I would figure out what it is that I can do to make sure that I'm getting there because Russ Silvestri asked me. And then, of course, I threw on employee because I'm sure you can all tell now I know the majority of our membership and I know what makes them tick and I can get them on the water. So start small. This sounds like a huge endeavor. It is. It takes effort and money and risk. Mentor someone. So maybe you can't get 20 people out, but you can start by mentoring someone. Peter Haynes is in the room, and Peter is a good friend of mine. Peter, come on the race committee boat with me, just me, and there's however many other people on the race committee, but I'm going to take you under my wing, and I'm going to show you how to do race committee, one-on-one. We're not going to go sit in a room. You're not going to become just another number to me. I want to invest my time in you to teach you how to do race committee. It's fun. And then the other thing that we've been very successful at Newport Harbor Yacht Club with is our race committee roundtables. Race committee roundtables sort of ended up with, there's U.S. sailing training that we, at the time, 6 years ago, my members felt they could not dedicate 2 days of 8 to 5 learning about race management. But I found out what motivated them. What motivates them? Talking about themselves. So how did I change that into learning about race management? I found 5 guys who grew up together, and I said, I need you to go find 5 guys. So now we have a room full of 25 people to plan for a little attrition. I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. So we put these 25 people in the room, and I just got them talking. Talk to me about your race management experiences. Tell me what we've seen. So through Socratic method, because I think that I'm quite knowledgeable, I hope, about race management, I was able to be a moderator in the room, take their stories about race management, and turn them into teachable moments. But I got them talking about themselves. That's what people love to do, talk about themselves, right? So we got them in the room, we super casual, we put the beer out and put the pizza out on the table. I told them they had to bring their rule books, they grumbled. We brought our rule books and we dissected those stories that they told us. And then 5 years later, they come to the race management roundtable meetings. It's become a brotherhood, it's secret. I didn't know it was so much of a secret because we now, the club's so busy, it's hard for us to find a room to meet on. So we meet when the club is closed on Tuesday nights. Well, funny little story is we have, our Commodore is a good friend of mine. And I feel like I tell her everything. She's a Commodore and a good friend of mine, but I guess there are some things that I just don't tell her. Well, she had cotillion. She has a 10-year-old son, and she was sitting outside at Newport Harbor Yacht Club on Cotillion Day, which is Tuesdays, also held when the club is closed, because no one wants to deal with all those screaming children and parents trying to teach them manners. So she's sitting there, and she's watching very esteemed members of the race committee go by her. Staff Commodore, Fleet Captain, race committee chairman. And she's kind of going, did I miss, what's happening at the yacht club? Something happened. And then she kind of got the nod from someone and was like, oh, it's race committee roundtable, and it creates buzz. It's the secret brotherhood. You want to be a part of it. And I know it sounds simple, and I know you're probably also thinking that this is not achievable, but I promise you it is if you put time and effort into it. Find out what makes people tick. And then the next thing you can do is get people on the water quick. Think about like Christmas morning when you're a child. All you do all year long is wait to open those presents under the tree. So just like when we've taught you all these skills, you have to get people on the water quickly. Let them use their skills and in the mentoring field. And then in a more practical sense, now I have this great group of people that I've built, and we need to sign up for a race committee. So I hope most of you are familiar with Google Forms, but if not, it's Excel. It's just like Excel. There's a spreadsheet form available in there, and you can make it public to make sign up easier. And you can you can email the matrix, because what makes people want to do race committee? It's fun, and they're with their friends. So if you can get one little person's name on there, Lynn's going to be the PRO. I want to go out with Lynn. I didn't have to call Lynn. Hey, Lynn, are you going to do PRO this weekend? Nope, it's already public knowledge, and we all know it. I will caution you on that, is that send it out to a targeted group first, so that you don't kind of get all your really new guys, filling in all these spots. So I kind of tier my communications a little bit, and I send it out to my top, most knowledgeable people, let them fill in a couple of spots. Then my second group, and then I always bringing in some new people on the water. And then, of course, direct calls and emails. Always finding out what motivates people, what ticks. We're short on time as well, but that's what you got to do. And you're going to have to maybe spread it out. Lynn knows Taran, so Lynn's going to call Taran, and I've asked her to handle that, so it's off my plate. So then she's going to get that great recruiter. Spread your time. Of course, there's the mass plea, right? We always send those mass emails to everyone. Basic race management seminars this weekend, and it goes out to 1,000 people, and how many show up? 10. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of the mass plea. It works, but I just think your effort can be better directed. And then never turn away a volunteer. Just a minute ago, someone was asking me, what do you do with the bad volunteers? I was like, we don't get bad volunteers. And I think they thought I was shocked. And I was like, well, if you've done your job motivating and selecting and training people, you're not going to get a bad volunteer. You need to use them. Always use them. I hate having someone come and volunteer and then I don't have a job for them. It's like, they'll never come back and work for me. It was so boring, Jen. All I did was sit there. I always make sure they have a job, whether it's, I don't know. Guess what? You're going to be the Walmart greeter today. Well, that empowers them, and that's what they get to do, and they had a job, and that was something that they did. So I guess I just want you to know that building a race committee and investing in your personnel is going to make it so much more enjoyable for you and all of your club members, because they're out there having fun on the water together. That's why they joined the club in the first place, because we are social creatures, and we want to be together. So I know I talked really fast. I'm really concerned that we still have 2 more presentations. I think that Lynn's got some notes for you here on equipment and boats, and then we'll probably just come back for question and answer unless someone has a really specific question on training volunteers. Cool, we'll let Lynn go.
Okay. I actually don't use this. So before we switch gears to equipment, no input, no question. Is anyone having problems getting volunteers to come and show up? Things like that. I think every club does something a little bit differently, but yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So, do you do any, base kind of training for, like, hey, this is what a mark is, how you set a mark,
Yeah, I can speak. So U.S. Sailing has training courses, right? Taran's going to talk about what U.S. Sailing offers. I can say that at Chicago Yacht Club, we run what we call our race committee refresher every April. It's a chance for people to come out of the winter months and sit down together, and we actually copied the module from this, right? We have different mini sections, so you can go and, as minutia as like how to tie a cleat, right? And I always make fun of my flag girls because they don't know, they just wrap around a bunch of times, right? And they've never been taught how to probably do it. So you have different modules that day. We do newbie day, where we'll take out the new guys and let them sort of be in charge or see what's going on. We do a lot of I think everyone's figured out by now, I love the powerboat stuff, so a lot of powerboat training at my club. What do you guys do over at Newport?
We do these basic race management roundtables. The skipper membership, which I talked to earlier, we don't do enough to teach them what is a mark. I think that we need to do more of that. Unfortunately, it's naive of us, but we assume when you become a member of Newport Harbor Yacht Club that you have a certain baseline of knowledge for joining our club. Of course, that's unique. That's probably not unique, but that is our situation. So I know Lynn, we were talking about this earlier. She uses non-member volunteers.
I use them.
Right. I can make it all sound flowery, but in the end, you're just pawns in my game. But so she uses non-members. At Newport Harbor Yacht Club, we only use members. That's sort of one difference.
And I think it's probably different at every club. At our club, we always joke that when you come in on the membership committee interview, you have to tie a bow and sing the song, otherwise the club song, otherwise you wouldn't be a member. But there are a lot of, and I know we've got a lot of talent in this room. I just look out and I see, you know, the largest big boat regatta manager here and a number of yacht club managers for different yacht clubs. So I know each one of us has a special way of training. The ones I like best is when you really gear it to what your people are looking for. And we'll talk about that just a little bit later in the, I think in the last section.
Any more comments or kind of like recruitment and keeping? It's, you know, what do they always say about volunteers? You have to feed and water them, right? So she mentioned the swag. I mean, I don't know what it is about today. We just love free stuff. So we have a new GM at Chicago Yacht Club. And I showed you the shirt. He thought of this. He made all the race committee a shirt, gave him at the end of the year, and it just has a picture of the race committee flag on the back, and just underneath says, "We'll work for food." So that's the new race committee's uniform up this year. But so, you know, talking about boats, I think it's really different as you go across the country. Some clubs have a big armada of boats to use, and some other clubs are asking their race committee volunteers to bring their boats, right? And some are borrowing. And we all know the dreaded borrowed boat that you have no idea what kind of maintenance is done to it, and if you break it, now you got to fix something that might have already been a pre-existing condition. So borrowed equipment always gets a little bit dicey. But it's, you know, in general, what are you going to provide your race committee? I would say, I know at my location, we provide them everything. They show up, there's a bag, it's got clipboards, pencils, GPS, wind wands, compasses, I mean, everything that they need to run the race is in the bag. Despite that, most of our regular guys who are doing it a lot, they put their own kit together because you like using your own equipment, right? But other places, you know, I think Columbia, you guys do something similar, right? You guys have most of the equipment, not all of it. I just came back from Miami, and you don't get anything. You get marks, right? You get marks and tackle. And if you didn't bring it yourself, you're going to West Marine. West Marine loves when OCR's in town. I think I had to go to Home Depot 2 years ago and buy, you know, wooden poles for the flags because it's just such a big event and it's not all out of one spot, so that you don't have the luxury of having that one equipment manager that's literally, you know, doling out the GPSs. So I think it's important. The way I would look at it is if I was going to invest in something, it would be what's going to make it easy for the race committee to not have to bring every day. When it comes to the electronics, you almost want them to make the investment, right? Because then they're familiar with that machine. Everyone knows the dreaded GPS that you don't know how to use that first day. And are you in statute miles, or you have that set up? But things like the boards, or rubber bands or pencils, or we have tackle boxes that have all that stuff in it. So a tackle box goes out, the old fishing tackle boxes, and they have the pencils, and then so that kind of stuff. That it's almost more tedious to ask volunteers to bring that. And then, what's the budget? We always laugh. I operate the way our finances are set up. I have only expenses. I have no income on my budget. So I always laugh that I'm the only employee that gets to just turn in a budget that is negative, $100,000 every year because they put the regatta income elsewhere. But what's the budget, right? So what do you need? What happens when someone loses something owned by the club? So what do you guys do? What kind of gear are you guys giving out? All of it, or just the little stuff, the whole kit?
We give everything less the ultra, not a rangefinder and super technical, but yes, all of our boats are.
So what do you do if someone drops it?
Oh, right now, nothing. The club absorbs the cost.
Yeah. What about you?
And at our club, it pretty much the package comes with everything in it: the GPS or a GPS, a hockey puck. And the person that you have to deal with if you lose one of those GPSs is in the room, so I better not say anything about it.
So, what's going to happen? We've all, oh God, went overboard, or you're literally getting strangled with 4 different lanyards on your neck as everything's. We started an amnesty day, so we leave the race committee door open, and if maybe something came home in your bag, you can bring it and put it back in. Because for the most part, people aren't stealing, and they're not trying to break the equipment, right? But it happens. So. We have a rotation plan. Every year I know I'm going to buy 5 hockey pucks, even because we're probably going to lose 5 or the little glass will fall off. So I think if you're looking at the finances of it, set up a pretty realistic rotation plan, and then you don't have to berate the RC member for dropping the thing overboard or whatever else. I know Olaf, you've lost at least one
I
thing.
got one little part.
Yeah. So if you do it that way, then you have a little bit more of a cushion for forgiveness, because back to the volunteer thing, you don't want to like shame them into coming into the race committee. So if you make it a little bit easier. So inventory, repair, distribution, and organization, that's an interesting one. Before, the position that I have right now is at Chicago Yacht Club, it was all done by volunteers. And it was kind of like a candy store in the morning. I mean, it was very organized, but people would just come in and grab handfuls of pencils. What are you going to do out there with all of those pencils? I can't figure it out. So now we have an employee do it. So it's myself or the race coordinator will actually inventory the stuff as it comes back in and then let it out. I'm going to skip ahead. So this is an example of one of the sheets that we'll fill out. And so in the morning when you come to get your race committee gear, that's sitting right on top of the bag. You take all your stuff out of the bag, check it, and then leave that sheet on the table. So at the end of the day, when you bring your bag back in, we can check to make sure everything's back in. So we can actually track pretty close to what day the radio went missing on. So we'll hunt you down. So and you'll see, like, that's a ton of stuff, right? We're not going to send all that out with frostbite, but this is a general one that we've had good luck with. Policy for loss or damage items is, you have to buy everyone around and drinks at the bar that night, but we've never had any problems. What is the group? What are you guys doing out here? Are you something similar to this, where you're inventorying and buying the stuff for them? It's costly, right? It's costly to keep that stuff up, but I'll tell you, the rotation plan is the way to go, because if you just already build it in that you know you're going to have to buy. I mean, we buy 7 radios every year, just knowing that they're going to conk out. West Marine hates me because I am like, I get the warranty plan, and I bring them back every year. I bring them back because we're using them a little bit rough. So now what about boats? It's when we're lucky in Chicago, we have a lot of boats. We don't have to borrow boats often unless we run, like for the nude and the verb, when we have 3 circles. We might have to borrow a boat from Columbia Yacht Club or have someone bring in a signal boat, but otherwise we have our own, which is really, really nice to do. Would you guys have all of your own boats?
A little combination.
A little. Are you borrowing from members, or does the member have to be on the boat, or how does that work?
I think it's up to the member that donates their boat if they have to be on the boat or not. I would say that 9 times out of 10 they are on the boat. That's who we ask. Unless it's like an umpire boat, sometimes we have to borrow umpire boats, whalers from people, and then of course the owner's not on the boat. But yeah.
And what about at Annapolis?
We're a combination as well. Mostly member boats, but we have club boats.
So how do you reimburse them? Do they get the cost of gas, or how does that work? Do they bring it half full and then they fill it up at the end of the day? We've had them do that.
So if I could help you a little bit, Taran. So I'm the race committee chair at Taran's place, and Linda's here. So boats, this is really interesting, because right now we're trying to buy a new club asset as the mark boat primarily. And when I went into our board of governors and said we need to buy another boat, we've got a small mark boat, but most of it's been heroic volunteer activity, and we really do well in Annapolis, so I'm not talking down. I donate my boat as a mark boat, but it's not really the boats, it's about the volunteers. In my view, we need a club asset so I can assign volunteers to the mark boats and have volunteer operators of a club asset. Because right now, if you're going to be a mark boat operator in Annapolis, you got to bring your own boat. And that means in the bay chop, we're looking for a 30-foot boat that's pretty maneuverable and so on. So I want a club asset so we can standardize processes and assign operators. Does this sound right to you?
This sounds exactly right.
Okay.
I didn't know that like the broken record, but find out what motivates people. Well, me spending my gas and risking my boat out there is not what motivates me to come out, but jumping on another boat.
We do reimburse gas,
Good.
so
Yeah.
we do that. And then you get into, how much gas.
Right. Does anyone,
Linda takes care of it.
So is it general? You get a gas reimbursement. Does any club give anything additional to that? Does anyone not reimburse at all? So just.
Well, we have many
altruistic
members.
approach.
We have many members that don't ask for reimbursement.
Now that's
So-
true. We will have members that will refuse, and then we'll have members that won't. They need the gas card the morning of. I know what you're doing. That's interesting. So now, what happens if you're using a member's boat and something breaks on it, and it's actually maybe the fault of another volunteer? Is there anyone that's encountering that?
No problem.
We fix
So the club fixes it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've paid for divers and to get
Yeah.
anchors and from wrapped around.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're going to end up having, your volunteers of boats will start getting jumpy about it.
Right.
You know, from a race management
We've made
perspective,
it-
Sorry.
We've made a conscious effort to not borrow boats because we've had a few incidences that got very expensive.
Yeah.
We have a procedure for signing off when we do borrow a boat and making sure we understand where the liability lies, so we don't have debates with our good members.
That's a good idea. So
We have forms that do that.
We did that a couple years ago. We wrote just a very short little contract, and so if Olaf borrows a boat for Columbia from us, we just write down who can drive it, what the status was when they let it out, when is it coming back, who's responsible for bringing it back, and we actually, and I've said this like a million times this week, but no one's allowed to drive any of our boats that hasn't gone through the certification process. So, and that includes when we lend it out to people.
We have one other piece that we do. We also have the sailing director involved, and if there's a question on the value of the boat, it gets kicked up to one of the Cs, one of the Commodores, because
Yeah.
we're just not taking on a boat what somebody says it's worth.
Yeah, fair enough. Linda?
When we've had, unfortunately, it hasn't been a big problem, but we've had some boats when we needed a signal boat, and somebody's been kind enough to give it to us. We know the boat, but we also know what's not going to work in it and how it is, and that's always a tough situation. I'm just interested in how do you turn people away who offer their boats? Do you say we'd love to have your boat, but does it have the following and do the 12-boat light? I mean, do you?
I certainly won't say this, but there was notoriously a volunteer who every year, I'm going to bring my boat, and every year, like the day before, the boat hasn't made it back out of the yard, this is wrong with it, and we knew it. So we would almost humor him, and we'd pencil it in, and we'd already have a backup ready to go, because we didn't want to be ungrateful, right, but we already knew what was going to come. We've had a couple times where we borrowed a boat, and in the middle of the event, something went wrong. So now we need the boat the next day, and so I will say, when that happens, the club gets caught. Our mechanics coming down and fixing their engine, and that's kind of the nature of it. Does anyone else? Would you ever ask the owner to pay for it? I don't know if that. I probably wouldn't be a good deal to say, hey, we broke your boat. Do you mind fixing it so we can use it again tomorrow? I don't think that works. The training process, we've passed the hump in Chicago. We got all the old guard that's been driving the boats. They're certified, they're good, and now it's protocol, right? There's no argument about it. It's becoming protocol in other area yacht clubs. Olaf here is the race chair at Columbia Yacht Club, and they're starting to go that route as well. I'll tell you, when you have a fleet of club boats, it's so nice to at least know that they have that base knowledge, and at least they put the effort into getting it. It is kind of an annoying hurdle, and a lot of people will balk at it, particularly the older guard. But once you do it and you're past that first rough year, it's worth it for you. And then what type of boats are working best? I laughed. We did a powerboat instructor course down here, and it's all whalers. It's all 13, 15-foot whalers. And I forgot when I worked out here that's what it was. And I think we bought the first inflatable, because I was coming from Chicago, and it's all ribs. That's all we use for the smaller coach boats and stuff. But so when I worked at Lido, I think we bought 3 inflatables and everyone on the bay is like, what are those things? Why are you using them? So what type of boat is going to work best, and is it multifaceted? So does it have to be double duty? Is it mark boat one day and then maybe a signal boat for crossfighting a week later? When you put the flag racks up, is it diminishing its ability to be a mark boat then? So we have some boats where we actually have to remodify them when they go from signal boat to mark boat. And really the biggest question is, who is taking care of that? At the end of the day, when it comes in and something's wrong, whose job is it before 8 o'clock the next day to fix it? And I think that has to be very clearly spelled out. It used to be me, and now it's our marine superintendent, but it's still ultimately me. If it doesn't get fixed the next day and he didn't do it, then it goes up. That's what I always say. But for you guys have a mechanic?
Yeah, we have a full staff of dock crew that manage our club-owned assets. So those of you who don't own club-owned assets and are thinking about getting one, hearing what Lynn and I are saying about that exact thing, if it breaks on Saturday night, who's fixing it for Sunday morning? It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. What about at Annapolis? What do you guys? You have a boatman?
We have our senior dock master actually is the mechanic as well, but we have that problem. Unless he's hauling boats, dry slow boats that day, he's still at 5. So it's always
And we're always in by
we've
5.
involved our owners in a lot of.
Yeah, well, the thing is it a club asset, which we have a lot of coach boats and all like that are club assets, but the volunteer boat's another thing. I mean, we had an oil pan go out in a race, you know, these can be catastrophic.
We made a photo boat in the nude last year. The photo boat became the signal boat.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you just, all of a sudden you're a signal boat now. These are subtle things, but, you know, in a volunteer boat, a windlass is important. And you're going to shake your head.
I was like,
Yeah.
what are these
So it's things like that that sound little until you get out there. Or electronics, you know, how many 12-volt outlets do you have on the boat?
Yeah,
So-
and what kind of engine is it? Where do the diesel fumes go?
Yeah.
Right, so we have the most wonderful man in the whole world lends us his boat all the time for signal, but my God, everyone's sick by the end of the day on that boat because the diesel fumes go right into it. So along with the equipment, I think a boat rotation plan is also pretty key. Even if it's 15, 20 years out, you know, we bought a boat 2 years ago, and when in the proposal we wrote for it, it was you're going to have to repower it in 3 years. So it's not a surprise, right? We know we're dropping $15,000 to $20,000 next year to repower this boat. It was still a good purchase, but I think that forward outlook on, because that's another way to keep your volunteers happy. If they're constantly being put out on boats that are unreliable, that they have to, you know, oh wait, that's the one where you got to jiggle it a little bit and then turn around one time and then turn the key and then it'll probably start. Like, that's really frustrating, right? Because especially if they're new, they're already learning something else, and now they have this added challenge of getting this boat working. And when it doesn't, and they don't get the mark shift or something, it's really frustrating to them. And then just one last thing, we'll turn it over to Taran, but the checklist. So if it is a club-owned boat, even if it's not, you know, having some kind of a checklist and that checks and balances. So when that boat goes out and then when it comes back in, someone's got to be responsible for it. So for us, it goes into Scott, our marine superintendent, and once he has that piece of paper, you know, the onus is on him. It's off of the volunteer. They know they can turn it in, and that's also kind of a nice feeling that they did their job, right? They did their job. They told them what was wrong, and now they can relax. And that used to be kind of a rough situation. They would put it in the log on the boat if no one read the log. Yeah, I said that was broken last week, but did you tell anyone? I put it in the log. Oh, good. So, you know, that's the way we're approaching it. Does anyone else have different ideas or plans that are working pretty good at your clubs for equipment, for boats at least?
We're pretty close to Jen, and you know, we actually have to manage our own fleet, and we've really stressed this is kind of like a preventative maintenance. And one thing I can recommend that we find is finally, if you're going to buy a club asset or if you're going to service a fleet, you know, it's a little bit more expensive, but instead of having like a day guy to come down, things that you fix, you make sure you go with someone that's kind of a certified area. You know, for us, it's really important. We'd love to have a mechanic. We just don't have it in our budget. Try to get Power Fleet to pick it up too. It was coming out of our junior budget, was kind of killing us, but we've since switched it over. We worked with the club, and we've had a lot of success with the preventative maintenance chart. And then, you know, making sure that, especially for the volunteers, they want a nice clean boat that clicks on, it's ready to go. And we've had things where I'm out there trying to switch out batteries and this type of stuff. And since we switched over to this, it's been pretty helpful. So these lists are very nice. So.
Yeah, you brought up a good thing, a nice clean boat. The sandwich wrapper from last week isn't still in the cubby. And all those wind wands that everyone drops and leaves is not in the bilge pump.
With the sandwich still in it?
And the zip ties, the bane of my existence, the zip ties that get stuck in they don't just disappear. You have to pick them up and put them in the garbage. That's illegal. All right, so I think this is, these are some of the pictures of just types. So these are some of our fleet. So we have, this is my baby. That's Carrie. That's our signal boat. Anyway, so all of these boats are used full time, and they all have different purposes, and they're all, you know, pretty crossover. This little boat, I put him in there. I got more grief for buying that, but it's a 19-foot, we call it the K. Baxter. I picked it up for like 17 grand because it was 2 years old, brand new, but it was sitting in the dealer's stock. And they said, it's not big enough for race committee, it's not big enough for it ends up being our most used boat because it's so good on all angles. It can be used for marks that the juniors use it. We take it down to Florida, we use it to coach Orange Bowl, and then we just use it in OCR. So it's funny, if you can find a boat that you can, it might not be perfect for all of them, but it works for all of them. So we got the biggest bang for our buck out of that little guy.
What's the size of those ribs?
This one is a 17. These guys, that's a Brig Falcon Rider 500. That's 16 and a half feet.
Can you get 2 marks in there? And can you
Yeah,
get two
so
marks?
these
Can you
ones
get
are-
2 marks and 2 people?
You could, I wouldn't do it. We use those for frostbiting and digging events, and for coaching. That's the coach boat fleet. So these are our mark boats. That's a Steigercraft 26. Not cheap. I think we bought that about 80. But it's one of the best solid boats. They're an East Coast boat, and just the manufacturers, I mean, it is a tank. Everyone fights over that boat. And that's the other way you keep them happy. How much is it worth to you to have Argo instead of Cape Baxter this week?
Another question.
Yeah.
What is the maximum number of circles that you would run as a yacht club?
We are, in my history there, the biggest we run was in 2008. We run 4, and that was the year we ran Etchells World. So we actually had a 3 for the nude and then a 4th just for Etchells and the nude.
And where do you get the other boats from? You borrow them from the other yacht
We
clubs?
borrowed them. So most of the time, the signal boats will come from other members. We'll come out and use their big power boats. We have 6 boats that we can use for Markset, and then we borrow from Olaf and usually from other yacht clubs, because we have a really good, very helpful group that are sharing equipment in the Chicagoland area. So, and the match race center is really good about a rib every once in a while. Yeah.
Who makes the decisions to buy what boats? Similar boats?
I'd like to say me, but it's not. I give recommendations, so I will go out and research it and then recommend it, and the stations committee or finance and the board, they'll make the final decision. But we have a boats committee also now that will put those proposals together. What about you guys?
Yeah, we're really similar to that.
Yeah.
So it's usually employee recommendation or prodding, and then somebody else will take them.
And it's highly discussed at Annapolis Yacht Club.
Well, yeah, and it brings up a good point. It's the way it goes. It's 6 weeks before a proposal, and then it's got to be approved by like 8,000 committees, and then so your haggling power is 0. Like I can't call a guy, work out a deal, and then tell him, all right, I'll get back to you in 6 weeks. It doesn't. So that's always a challenge too. So we have some vendors now that'll work with us on the timing, and they know that I can't just get approval overnight. But I'll tell you, I've lost a couple good deals because it's got to be the checks and balances of the yacht club. So you got to.
I think this is a real important point. At Annapolis Yacht Club, Taran said it, we have a 2-year capital investment program. So we're planning out 2 years. It's a board of governors approval. And we're looking at buying a boat shorter than that, and that's a special committee then. It has to be specially approved as an out-of-program purchase, which is a big deal at a yacht club. But that's, it's hard.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, we never let people go out and start talking price until the board's approved it.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
So they require 3 quotes.
We have.
Chase, it's a catch-22. I can't get you the quotes.
We've got enough experience buying boats, and
Yeah.
we buy several every year, that we know what these things cost, and we approve a blanket amount, and then we're between the Commodore and the person assigned to buy it, go get the best deal, and then 3 Commodores approve it.
You want to try your apples?
I've won the Verve Cup.
We've talked about motivating personnel and finding them. We've talked about getting the right equipment together. And I want to talk a little bit about leveraging the resources that are available to continue to raise the bar on your race committee. And this is outside resources, outside of your club. And the first one I wanted to talk about is training. So I'd like to take this opportunity to read a quote from our president, Tom Hubble. And Tom Hubble says that U.S. Sailing can offer the pathway to building resources at your club. U.S. Sailing trains sailors from beginners to Olympians, cruisers to powerboat operators, instructors to program directors, club officers to class officers, and race officials to umpires. So if there's something that you're looking to build, U.S. Sailing, you may not find it all on the same website, and I even had to dig around a little bit to find it myself. And I'm on some of these websites a lot. But U.S. Sailing has a lot of programs that may be able to touch some of your members to raise the bar. I just want to run quickly through them because I didn't even know about all of these resources. Lynn and I were chatting last week, and I had an opportunity to learn more about the powerboat training. Let me just run through them. In the small boat training, we have 7 segments of learning to sail, different levels. And then to teach small boat classes, you can become an instructor. Same thing with keel boats for adults. You can take classes, or you can go up the track. There's different tracks on teaching sailing. And again, powerboat training, which Lynn taught this week. You can take powerboat training, powerboat race management training, or there's a whole series of teaching powerboat training in different levels. Same thing with windsurfing. You can learn to windsurf or teach, and that will help you as race managers. You say, well, I'm not talking about windsurfing. That could help you as race managers because you may be running a windsurfing event at your club. And it's good to learn the rules of the game. We also have a STEM program which keeps people involved in the sport. Safety at sea to learn seamanship for junior sailors and for ocean racers. I know it's required to do a number of the Annapolis to Newport, Annapolis, Bermuda, Newport, Bermuda. It's a requirement. We also teach adaptive sailing and how to have an adaptive sailing program. And you may be running, I know we run Crab in the Chesapeake, you may be running a disabled event. So this is just another resource for you to attend to learn more about how you can be a better race officer or race committee person when you have a adaptive sailing regatta. Community sailing is also an area that can offer you resources. I mean, we talked about Sail Newport, right across the way, the harbor from New York Yacht Club. There's a lot of ways that you can partner with the community sailing centers in your area to really expand your mission, expand your regatta. Maybe they have parking, or maybe they have cranes, whatever it is. There's lots of resources, and you can learn more about community sailing through U.S. Sailing. And the last, which is my favorite, it is my favorite, is a lot of the race officer seminars. One that's new this year and that's going to be taught tomorrow afternoon, which you might be interested in, is Race Committee 101. And this is similar to Join the Race Committee team. What this is for the brand new person that shows up and wants to join the race committee. It's content that you can get from U.S. Sailing that you can use, and you can be the presenter at your yacht club and adapt it to your yacht club. And it's for it's not PRO oriented, it's just for a new person, whether they need to tie a bowline or a package or whatever. It's initial race committee training.
Is the schedule to change for that? I thought it was on Sunday.
Sunday morning. Thank you, Olaf. And then, of course, we have the one-day race management and the two-day. And all you have to do is Google race management seminars, and it will come up. The whole seminar schedule will come up if you do that. Same thing for the judges seminar. And the judges are going to have club judge, national judge, and it's club judge, national judge, and senior judge. It's going to be changing that. So we're going to have the two, the race management and the race committee and the judges are going to be the same in this country and then eventually Canada. And also there are different umpire seminars. So some of those seminars can help you learn more about the game, and you can take those skills back to your club to leverage your resources. Now after everybody's been taught, the next thing one other idea you might do is to have exchanges with other yacht clubs. I know we've been talking about that here with some folks, and just exchange race committee people, have one person go to another yacht club to see how they do it, have other people from other yacht clubs in your harbor come join you and rotate that around, and really take the opportunity to see how other people run events. And I challenge you to expand and learn more about the game. If you haven't ever done a disabled event, sign up for a disabled event in your harbor and just continue to use the resources that are available to you through your connections that you've made at this seminar. Say, I'd like to come join you, and really try to leverage and learn from each other. And I think that's how we'll raise the bar in race management.
I think we have about 10 minutes left for Q&A. I don't know if anyone has specific questions. Great.
Well, so I do. So you have volunteers out there, which is fantastic. And so you're giving them some training. But let's say you've got a recall situation now, where it matters to these sailors. And so you've got someone experienced that calls the line, X flag goes up, but there's no sound signal. So now we got a request for regress. How do you handle that with your volunteers if there's a protest hearing with a mistake that unfortunately happens from the race committee?
Well, there's a procedure, and also there's a club judge seminar, which you might be interested in, because it sounds like you know all about redress and X flags.
Well, I don't know. I just wondered, so you have a volunteer, unfortunately, that, they put the X flag up, but they drop the horn. So now the sound signal doesn't get blown.
Right.
Right? So do you all at your clubs then ask the volunteer to go to the protest hearing?
Is the volunteer the race officer? It goes to the race officer.
Yeah, usually the PRO would.
So you have your race officer go handle that whole thing and release the volunteer.
Well, it's not them. It'll be your panel of judges, right? So your.
Well, I'm sure they're going to want to say, hey, why didn't you blow the sound signal?
Right. He'll have to be called in.
Yeah, usually what you do is, from a race management perspective, you get your race committee together, you talk through it, and I usually have a rule as a PRO that if you see anything, come to the PRO first, talk it through, and then the PRO will make the decision whether to protest or whether to request redress for that competitor, and then the PRO will make the decision on who goes into the jury, John, and make the decision as to whether we need any witnesses or not. Any comments as a judge?
The only thing I would add is, in answer to your question, if the PRO goes in and says, we made a mistake, the jury's done. That's all they don't need to talk to the guy.
You release the volunteer.
Well, you want to keep, you may or may not want to keep him around to.
That's part of their job.
It's part of their job. They want to learn how to do it. You want to help them learn how to do it better, but they don't have to go get berated by a protest committee.
Well, yeah,
So if you, as the PRO or whoever the PRO is, goes in and says, "Yeah, we blew it. Sorry," then that's it.
I offered, we had a mark set issue, a really horrendous, the mark wasn't there kind of issue. Totally our fault. But I just asked my mark set guys, I said, do you want to come with me? And one of them said, yeah, I'd like to see how it works. And so they have a little bit more confidence and a little bit more knowledge about how it goes. And the jury doesn't care if I bring in extra volunteers. So
I think anytime when it gets to the race officer, at that point they've had experience, and it's not just, the day's not over when you step off the boat. The day's over when the time to file is done and whatever hearings have to be done. And I think that's normal. That's how it is.
In that particular instance, you as the PRO are also going to know, you should know right away that that's a required sound signal.
Correct.
And he's going to get redressed. So just call him back. Don't make him go run around the race course and come back in and have the race thrown out. That's going to make your competitors unhappy with you.
Yep.
So.
I just think it was probably about protecting the volunteer. So just
yes,
remember
absolutely.
that last thing.
Right.
Five compliments to one thing to do better. So there you go.
So your club, you protect the volunteer and have your PRO or DRO go deal with it.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to agree with what he just said. I wouldn't reprimand. I don't know if somebody said this. I wouldn't reprimand the volunteer.
No.
That's the best way to lose your entire race committee. But
It's just sailboat racing, guys.
No one died.
The horn didn't go off. Okay, do it again next week, right? I don't.
I've been involved in a lot of race committees, and one in particular, before they go out, he holds a meeting, whether they're the best race people you can find or the most junior. And he discusses exactly what's going to happen throughout the day. When they finish the race, he does the same thing. He debrief, which I think is the best way to, one, motivate your, I don't like to use the word volunteers, your race committee, and the best way to prevent further problems. But the going out, brief, coming in, debrief, is so healthy, and it works.
Peter.
One thing you did not say was you always tell the committee, thank you. I mean, no matter how badly they blew it, you say, thank you, we did a great job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Absolutely.
I don't think we've
100%.
ever I think there's more tactful ways to go about it, right? You start to realize maybe that guy shouldn't be the weather mark because he just seems to want to put it wherever he wants. So then you pull him closer, right? You put him on the bottom end of the course, or you put him on the signal boat. I think there's other ways to manage things that aren't working without making volunteers feel like they're unneeded or unappreciated. Did you have something?
Yeah, because we run primarily volunteers. I mean, we have some PROs that do our invitationals, but then we use fleets to sign up for club races, sign up for our Thursday night races, and so they have full responsibility to set up the course, run the race, and then at the end of the day, we want to know who won. So the scoring piece of it turns out to be a real challenge. And do you have any ideas or suggestions on, because the argument is, well, we only do this a few times a year, and so we forget how to score, right? How are you guys
Scoring
made?
is never easy. And
No.
getting the scores out to the racers is never easy either, and it's always a task. And what I recommend, there are a lot of new scoring programs. You may have heard about them this seminar, yacht scoring, Regatta Network, other ones. But practice before the day of, or maybe go to another event that perhaps uses that scoring program, and then get a scoring team together. Because they're always the one that's still working when everybody's already out at the bar, and they're still trying to get the scores out. And
Yeah, well, we have the scoring team, right? And so for the bigger regattas, they do it, but we can't have those 2 or 3 people do every event, right? Multiple times a week coming down there to doing the scoring. So I've tried to do things where I've tried to we're kind of using Sail Wave as our ones that we're primarily use, and I've tried to make like the one pager. Okay, so any guy can go in there and you got one page and say, this is how you score it. Some of it is I think we intimidate ourselves, right? We say, scoring this is hard. I don't know the programs. Well, I've tried to make it simple. I've tried to get into fleet captain meetings and say, hey, let's go through it. Let's do an example, right? Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people listen to you. Sometimes they're not there when it's their fleet's turn. But I find it kind of a challenge, and I think there's somewhat of a mental roadblock for a lot of people. Real or imaginary, it's a roadblock. I haven't quite figured out how to get totally past that.
Well,
how many people have had challenges with scoring that are in this room? Seen it in a lot of company.
They like to put a bug in every program.
I think this is a bigger issue for us than even you might imagine, insofar as our competitors now expect us to have the scores posted from the water electronically. So we just have a few scores that are now capable of, with assurance, of doing the scoring on the water and having the scores ready when they're coming in from the races.
Yeah.
I think we're reaching an era now. If you went to the technology session here and so on, they're going to be watching the scores on their phones. They're doing that already.
They are, yeah.
And so you've got to be accurate and capable electronically to do this. So it isn't, and so we've got the multiple different electronic systems that we're working with now, and we've got to have connectivity from the water in. So this gets to be an expertise that we have volunteers that do it, but the dedication is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary.
So really, this is a challenge for our sport, I think.
Yeah, scoring seems to be one of the...
Even frostbiting, we're scoring from the water sometimes now, or emailing taking a picture of the sheet, sending it in, so when they get off the boats, it's done.
Yeah, we do, like for Wednesday night races, as soon as the race is over or even during the race, we actually use an iPad.
Yeah, tablets or sheets.
And, because they expect when they come back to the bar, they will see those, scoring on the TV already.
They're very neat.
That's I want to present a problem, and I'm looking at the audience, okay? This is a major problem. Look to the left, look to your right. What's the average age of that person, okay?
Nick, you have to go there?
Looking toward the audience.
Let me tell you what's happening. We have a race
in the middle,
of close to 80 people, okay? 85% to 90% are 60, 65 and over. We put a call out for race committee. No one in the 50s shows up. No one. I know they want to race. Our Vanguard fleet has a very good system. One day on the water, you're a race committee. So this is acclimating them to race committee in the future. We still can't pull them in to do race committee. I'm on the water 50 weeks of the year. We cannot get these kids.
Nobody's told me that in a long time.
But we can't.
That's a common problem.
It is.
I mean, more volunteers, we need more volunteers under 50. And at some point, you hate to say, you know, my real problem is I need to send a 25-foot mark boat out into a 15-foot sea swell to pull an anchor with 100 feet of road on it. Not, do I have a body? Do I have a body that can handle that scenario is our issue. You know, it's like,
So just talking about motivation, so in getting these younger people involved, what do they say? They say, I don't have enough time because my kids are sailing. Great, there's my scoring team. I took all the moms who said, I have to take my kids to sailing. Great, why don't you come down? I'm going to teach you how to score. They score the whole summer series because they're already sitting at the yacht club. They're motivated by their children sailing. They're a captive audience. I took them, I bought them a cute lunch. They have a cute now little bag because that's what motivated them. And I said, thank you. And I taught them how to score. So finding out which people fit into which scenario are going to work. So my younger crowd, again, for me, it was finding the person that inspired them. So we have a young person, Ryan Marshall. He's now one of my best mark setters, and a staff commodore just went up to him and took him under his wing. It takes more than you. And I know I probably made it sound too simplistic, but you have to find those people that are fire starters in your organization that can get Lynn to come out and can get Taran to come out on the water. You have to find out individually what motivates them. It sounds like a huge task, but it pays off, and that's the trick.
Drink tickets.
Drink tickets work
Drink
like
tickets.
sharks.
And we don't want to hold you all from the bar, but there are just a couple of more comments.
One of the dynamics that we have on the aging race committee issue is those people really love it. And they got their defenses up. And trying to break all that down and get other people involved is really difficult. But there's another side of it. As a Commodore, I'm sitting there looking, I'm not so sure this is safe. And it's getting to the point where we're going to sit some of them down and have discussions, and it's not going to be fun.
We've taken a boat owner and had to literally, who stopped paying attention to where the boat was going. And I won't tell you what happened, but it was lucky it wasn't that bad. But we had to literally say, you come out all the time, but we need to have somebody with you to make sure you focus.
Do you have some answers? Because, I mean, of all the things that we need to talk about, that may be.
Yeah, but I'll go with Jen and say, everyone's different, and you really have to face these as people and as respectful other members. But you've got to be in, there's certain times where you just got to be in people's face, and you've just got to be prepared to deal with it.
I went out on the race committee vote, or mock race committee vote with John the other day, but it reminds me of that situation because just being on that boat, what he taught me, I mean, I let myself be it, but I let myself be in that learning role as someone younger and being respectful. I think people want to learn. If you can there's that aging membership that's ready to go on, you're so valuable. Why don't you pass on that information to someone? You got to get everyone working for you.
Yeah, but it brings up a really good point because there are some aging members that have become absolutely dangerous out there, and sometimes I'm afraid that we just kind of put them out to pasture and say, just kind of go quietly away. And I really think we need to celebrate what they've done, right? And make sure that when they are past the time to be able to do some of the things, that it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal, the contributions they've had, because without them, a lot of us would not be out on the race course ever.
I just wanted to suggest, I don't know if this will work. We're starting to try it, and we're hoping it will work. But Jen's comment brought it home. Jen taught me something too. She taught me where Mexico was, which I was totally confused about. And it's a way to, if you can get those older people, you guys were talking about mentoring before, if you can try and slide those older folks into a mentoring role and say somebody else is going to manage this, but they need your expertise, your experience, maybe you've got a way to get them off the front line a little bit and get them to help a younger generation person who's not actually dangerous and can focus better do their job.
Well, if there are other questions or discussions, the bar is probably open down the way.
Thank you.
We appreciate all of you coming.